Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Women's Franchise Committee podcast, Her Success, the Stories of Female Franchise Leaders. I am Cassidy Ford, Senior Director of Franchise Sales at Entrepreneur Media, and today we are joined by Michelle Rowan, President and COO at Franchise Business Review. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Cassidy.
Oh my goodness. So Michelle has already graciously sat down to have a conversation with Her Success earlier. I guess, was it this last year that we did this?
I think it was
year?
actually 2 years ago with Dawn. It was right after Dawn joined the committee. So I think it was 2 years ago.
Gotcha. So you have seen and heard Michelle on Her Success previously, but this episode is actually our celebration of our Crystal Compass Award winner for 2023. And we are so honored to have Michelle as our Crystal Compass Award winner for this year. So thanks for joining again.
Thank you. And you're not as honored as I am to receive it. And if you missed the first conversation, you can go back. But the highlights are, if I got to have drinks with someone at a bar, it was Justin Timberlake and Brené Brown. So now everyone's caught up.
That's great. I did not remember that actually about the Justin Timberlake and Brené Brown thing. So that's awesome.
That's all that I remember.
No, not at all. So for those of you listening who are not as familiar with the Crystal Compass Award, it is something that is given by the Women's Franchise Committee to an individual who exemplifies leadership. It was established to recognize women and men who have made significant contributions through leadership within their franchise organization, the franchise community, or the community in which they live. So I can't think of anyone more than Michelle that would, qualify for winning that award.
It was amazing when Robin called to let me know it was amazing. And we had been talking about other stuff that was going on. So it just wasn't even on my radar when she's like, can we grab a quick call? So it caught me off guard. And I was with my family when I found out, which was just really special down in Virginia. My whole family lives down in Virginia. So I was going back and forth a lot. And to just get to celebrate with them was just so cool. And my dad used to do our survey calls with us. So he's been more involved in our work than other people, I think their families were. So it was just really such a treat to let them know that it was coming.
Yeah, that is a really neat thing to be able to share with your family for sure. Also, for our new listeners, we'll dive into Michelle's story in franchising here at the outset, but we're doing something a little bit different today, which normally, if you've tuned in, we go in depth to our guests and our featured franchise rock stars past and their stories. Since we've already had a really cool look into Michelle's story, which you do need to go back and listen to that first episode, undoubtedly you need to do that. But we wanted to talk about a particular topic today that is something that months ago I had asked Michelle what was really on her heart and her mind about challenges for leaders in franchising. And the idea popped up, right, Michelle, of situational mentorship. This was something that, as we talked further, we really got excited about to dive into as someone who, with your experience and your background and your story, really has some insight into something that could be helpful for other female franchise leaders out there.
Yeah. So I think, since we had that conversation, I think the idea came up because I think there's been a lot of conversation if you join Women in Franchising on the clubhouse calls, on any of the regional meetings. I think there's a lot of encouragement for people to find a mentor. Mm-hmm. And it came up at our summit last week of just the IFA has a program where they'll match you with people to be a mentor. I do the Thrive 30 under 30, which is for franchisors that have under 30 units to connect with leaders. And I've done that for 3 years now. So these formal mentorships that we have in our life are really important. And I think, I can't encourage people enough to find those people. But I think that there's this idea that, especially when you get to, I've been in franchising for 18 years, I can't be a mentor to everybody that approaches me. And I think, talking about that too, where if you're approached to be a mentor and you don't have the time to give people, it is important to say that you can't do it or to offer to try and help them find someone. I think that's also really important because having that established kind of cadence of what they need, that's all important for both sides to get something out of it. And I get just as much out of people that I mentor as they get from, well, I hope that they get from me and our conversations and what we're doing. But this idea of situational mentorship is, I think also too, you'll probably know this, but being a supplier in franchising gives me this lens of all these different brands, the challenges they've gone through, the stuff that they're really good at. And it's a very natural thing for me to connect people when they come to me and they're having a problem in a specific area of their business or in leadership. And it's really easy for me, and Courtney and I talk about this, that Courtney Stilling's on my team. We're really connectors of people. We really enjoy helping people solve those challenges, or also just having that feeling of somebody else has been through it or you're going through it at the same time. There's something really comforting that you're not doing this alone. So I really would challenge people to think of asking for help from people that have been through a specific thing that you're going through. And I can give examples of this too. But I think it starts with your supplier partners, is that franchisors don't think about how their supplier partners can connect them with resources that could really help them in their business. They're experts at what they do, the service that they're providing you. So tap into them because they do want to help you. And I think it's an easy place to start and ask those questions if you're looking to connect with someone that has been through something that you're facing.
How did you get to this point? You mentioned that you've been in franchising for 18 years. So you are now in this place where you're able to give back from a mentorship capacity, but kind of fill us in a little bit on how you got started and how you ended up where you are now.
As far as mentorship or specific to my journey?
I think your journey, I think we have a lot of new listeners that are new to you. So why don't you start with that?
Yeah. So I went to school and I received a degree in communication and I did my minor in education. So my plan was, my college, you had to go a fifth year to get your master's in teaching, and that's how you came out as a teacher. So that was kind of what my track was. I always waited tables. I waited tables to help pay my way through school. And when I got out of college, I was waiting tables and I was temping at a sales office in a hotel, and just never got back to getting my degree. I didn't want to spend more money on education. And I realized I really liked business. So that's what shifted me away from education. But I think there is a natural passion that I have as far as educating or sharing best practices or doing things that are right. So I worked in the hotel. I then went to a competitor of Verizon in the 90s and ended up managing an inside sales team, and just kept finding those opportunities where my small business got bought by a larger business, bought by a larger business, and where other people kind of feared that change or just going through those motions of having a new company. I just raised my hand. Every time there was an opportunity that I could learn more, take more on, it's what I wanted to do. And it's now what I look for in people, in that you can't teach passion and you can't teach people that are naturally curious to just keep growing. And whether that's a formal education or just passion to read and to watch things and learn, that's what I look for in the people around me, is that I try and surround myself with people that aren't really just stuck in where they are at today or their business is at today, but have that curiosity or that passion to just keep learning and knowing more. So I think that led me to getting a little bored in the work that I did at Choice One. And I just started poking around. I wanted to be back in Portsmouth. I was on the road a lot and I wanted to be back in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. My husband and I were thinking about having children and just what that would look like if I was traveling, and found Eric Stites, who's the founder of Franchise Business Review, through our network, our alumni network. So we went to the same college. We did not go at the same time. I was his first full-time hire, and it was a slow process for him to decide to have me join his team, and rightly so. First hire. I'm hoping he feels like he got it right.
I bet he does.
Yeah, but just really connected with him and got what his mission was, which was he was at a web portal. He was at a company that just did advertising for any company that wanted to. But he thought there was an easier way to help get information from existing franchise owners that they could share with people looking to join the brand and make that process easier, more transparent. And that's kind of where his idea for Franchise Business Review came from. And that's what I wanted to do. You know, I love business, and my father was becoming a franchisee at the exact same time that I found this posting. So before that, I was the like, hey, I know McDonald's is a franchise. That was about what I knew. So the timing was just so serendipitous that my dad had just become a franchisee. I started interviewing with Eric. My mom fell and needed help. She had fell and broke one arm and then had damage on the other side. So she really needed a caretaker. So I was out with them, taking care of them as I was talking to Eric. And so getting to see this perspective of my dad running a business as a franchisee and what Eric was trying to do just all made sense to me. And I wanted to be part of it. And I also wanted to be part of a small business again. I had kind of gone up in the ranks, and I was part of, I was a little cog in a very big machine, and realized I like not being kind of pigeonholed and doing one thing every day, but really, how can I help grow an organization and have more of that operations and sales perspective in how that's going to happen?
Right. That's something that transition period of figuring out exactly where where you find yourself fitting in the best is always an interesting kind of phase to be in. And I'm sure during that time, you actually were seeking out counsel too, the way that we're talking about.
Right. Yeah, I think so. You know, I can think of these times of situational leadership and mentorship that stood out to me in my life. And it's so clear now in that everything in my journey, and I would say this to anybody that's either early in their career or thinking about what that changes that they want, is you can pull out pieces of things you love and things that you don't like about jobs. And also, too, the same is for your managers. So there were ways I've always had great managers, but there's people that I got along better with than I didn't. And there were things that I picked up of what I wanted to do when it came to leading people and what I knew I wouldn't do. And I think that same thing comes with parenting. You know, I'm the youngest of three. So my sisters had their families before, and I looked at it the same way. Like, they were such a tremendous network for me because I was the first of my friends to have children. And I was also the first of my friends to go back to work right away and wanted to go back to work. So those kinds of things can make you feel very lonely. And these are big life changes that you're going through. So when you are looking to transition the career, you don't have to have it all figured out, but you can talk to other people about how they got to their decisions, or how they picked and choose. Like, I wasn't in a hurry to go to my next job. I was really looking for something where I could make a difference and I could work with people that I wanted to work with. Those were my two big things. And then I knew I wanted to be back to Portsmouth. So I think you can always look at the situation you're in and pull out what are the things you've learned from it, good or bad, that you know that you want to repeat and help share that with other people, or that it's just not how you would choose to raise your children or lead your people, or just how you want to treat people or be treated. So those were the first things. And then I would say being really open to it, because I think other people have offered me that I need that type of situational mentorship or formal mentorship before I saw it. So, you know, Eric has always been my biggest cheerleader here at FBR. And so he was part of a Vistage group, which is a networking, a peer group, but you're meeting with the same people every month. And he came to me and said, hey, they do groups for, it's called a key group. And it's for basically if anyone's in traction or EOS, the idea is your visionary is in one group, and then the person that executes on that vision is in a key group. So he said, I really think that you should look at being part of one of these groups. And I think in some instances, and I immediately said, yes, I think that sounds great. If, like, to be with other number twos, but I think he thought I was going to push back and say, you know, a day out of the business every month is hard. I mean, it's really hard to walk away and focus on the business instead of in the business. But I immediately said, yes, that makes total sense. So I had the opportunity, and I've been in it for about 6 years, to form this group that I meet with monthly, and they're a help. But my situational leadership that has come, or mentorship that has come out of that, has been probably more beneficial to me than the structure and the continuity of those monthly meetings. One person that's in my group, Ed, he actually probably shouldn't use names, but
We can
it's
edit
not,
that out.
no, it's fine. So Ed went through, came into his company, and went through the decision to buy his company, which is something that Eric and I have talked about. Like, what is the future of FBR and what does that look like? So he came in and, was such a great help to me and just met with me separately to talk about what is it like to go through that process of vetting a business and deciding if you want to buy it. And just like so generous. And one of the other people was a lawyer who offered to just go out and talk with me about anything that I wanted to. So having those experts in their fields and being able to tap them when it was relevant to my experience was amazing. And I wouldn't know that or have that if I hadn't created this network of people and just really known about them and what they do and where they add value to people, to just, tap them when I needed to ask them questions about something. And they've always been so giving of their time because they want the people in their that they surround to be successful. And I think that's more powerful in franchising than anywhere else, is that we all want everybody to be successful and ethical and doing the right things. We don't want anyone to give us a bad reputation, right? So we're here to help them make the right decisions.
If we take a step back and purely from a definition standpoint, what would you say the difference between situational mentorship and mentorship is?
Yes, that's a great question. So I think Thrive, I think that is a formal mentor relationship. I have a mentee I've been teamed up with. It's a structured 12 months. I meet with them. I've had 3 different people that I've gone through this with, where I identify what are their goals? Why did they sign up to this program? What are they looking for? How can I tap into my network or my expertise to help them? What's the cadence that they want to meet? That's formal mentorship. I think of Marianne O'Connell. I came to her. She was the chair of the WFC. I reached out to her and just wanted to get to know her. She has become an informal mentor to me in that we don't have structured times that we get together, but I can absolutely pick up the phone or text her to ask any question I want. She will always be there to support me. And I would say that that's the kind of informal mentorship that I've kind of come up with and seen play out. Like there was no formal conversation of, Marianne, will you be my mentor? Can we meet these monthly, quarterly things? But I would say we touch base at least quarterly. And there's a personal and a professional aspect of the stuff that she's been helpful and impactful to me and my business. Another one is I had somebody at the summit who is interviewing someone else in the industry. And I think they went through the first round and there was a little bit of like, is this the right person for us? But they were able to come to me and say, I know that you've had interaction with this person. What's your take? Here's what those specific things are that are kind of tickling in my head. And I'm trying to wonder, do I need to dig into this more? Or what is your perception of it? I think that's situational, right? That they are, and I've been there, especially when you're hiring a salesperson, their job is to sell and they should be able to sell you. So it's like, am I getting sold or is this the right fit? So I think that's another example of situational mentorship where I could help them through that particular issue that was kind of weighing on them.
Are there any aspects of situational mentorship that you would say, it's not guardrails, that's not the word that I'm looking for, but is there anything about situational mentorship that you would recommend to someone who is looking to be a mentor that would say, hey, this is a positive looking relationship with a mentee, this is a good way of doing this, or any advice that you would give to make sure that's the most effective relationship possible?
So I think, it depends on what kind of structure you're looking for. And especially if you're going to higher level executives, they might not be able to commit a full year or a formal relationship with you. But if you have identified what your need is and why you want to tap that person, is there a way you could go to them? So I do think when you're looking for it, if it's not someone you have a relationship with, you can still reach out. It doesn't have to evolve from just like your network of people you know. But let's say you see someone speak. So, like Susan Beth speaks on filling your passion bucket. She talks on her family business. She talks on leaving that to go do her own thing. I resonate with like, oh, you worked for a family business and had to go through a tough conversation with your family to tell them that you're the first person to leave. I'm going to reach out and specifically ask for 1 hour of your time to talk about that particular experience that you went through. And I'd love some thoughts on kind of what I'm going through. So it's a very, very specific ask. So I think that's what you mean by guardrails. I think you can put structure in it. Same thing with like, I don't know, Susan, but Cassidy, you do. I'm going to reach out to you and say, this is what I'm hoping to get from Susan. Do you think that I could get at 30 minutes, an hour of her time? Maybe you offer to make that intro. That's a situational mentorship, and that you're like, yes, this person can help you. I'm going to connect you and see if she'll give you that hour. I think that's another example of it. So I think it's good to have structure, but there's also unplanned mentorship and just it might just come up in conversation. But I think the other important thing is if it's not somebody you know, you could be talking about pretty sensitive issues. So being very clear, I would say it's another structure or guideline to say, I would like to talk with you and have it be within this circle of trust. And I think that's okay to specify as well, so that that person understands I'm having a private conversation. I might not want my employer to know. I might not want, like, that's okay as well. So as much as you can prepare the structure or the ask, I think that's good. But then, informal stuff will come up, but just protect yourself and make sure that person knows that this is kind of off the record.
What is the difference? Because you and I have had this conversation before. There's a difference between going to someone for mentorship and then going to someone with a problem that that is a venting session, or that is you rehash the problem but don't get to a solution or an actionable, next step. What is the difference between that, and how do you make that work?
So, I mean, I think the difference is like when you're looking to someone that has experience doing what you're looking to do or can offer you opinions or guidance, that's different than just like the vent. Like if you're not, sometimes someone has been through something, so you want to share that experience with them, but you're not really asking for feedback. But I think you can state that. And I think a lot of times, a lot of my text threads will start with, just need a quick rant, just a quick vent. Right. And so you kind of get it out there. But again, I think with the mentorship, you're looking for someone that has advice or experience that you haven't been through yet. And so you're tapping into that outside perspective, or sometimes it's just that, like, I don't know how to respond to this. Like, I'm having this problem with an employee or a franchisee. I'm just looking for, I posed one to Paul a couple weeks ago at FLDC, just like, somebody hires this person and this comes out after, like, what are ways that you would deal with that? And you can even do that in a group of 3 or 4 people and kind of see what they have. And you'll always come up with something different than you were thinking about. And I feel like it just gives you different ways to think through a situation before you act.
In that sense of things, you said you had some examples earlier. If you can share, what is the biggest, most important piece of advice that you have given to someone else or received from someone as part of this mentorship?
The biggest piece of advice I've given or received. Well, I think that's a good one. That's a good one to ask. The biggest piece.
Most important, something that was most impactful.
Well, I think the one that I've received was whether or not I wanted to own my own business. So I own a business with my husband. So the idea of, whether I would want to own a franchise business review at some point, immediately I was like, no, like, I already own a business and it's very hard work to be a business owner. And then having someone say, but why not? What else would you rather be doing? Like, this is what you're passionate about. And getting me to answer those questions or ask those questions of me of why I originally said no. I get asked frequently, if would I want to go work for a franchisor? Would I want to make a change? And that's a very easy no for me. This is the first job I've gone into where I haven't thought about what's next. I'm doing what I want to be doing. But that was a good question to me, because in my head, it was, I couldn't do this without Eric. I couldn't do this on my own. And that was Ed saying, yeah, you could. Like, you love what you do. You love this brand. You love what you do. Like, this is not a skill set. And that could go a little bit to imposter syndrome, right? We all suffer from that. Like, I'm saying no because I can't do it. But they, pushed me a little bit to say, well, what else would you do? Like, this is what you love doing. Why? And I was like, you're right. This was a complete gut reaction of, I can't do it. I can't run and own two businesses at the same time. And the truth is I can, and everybody can do what they want to do. But then I think it's kind of that gut check of, do I have the skill set to do it? And that's where you go deeper in those questions. So I think that was probably the best for me for an aha moment. The same thing too, as far as the flip. I mean, I'd like to say, I feel like I've given people, I wouldn't say it's advice, but maybe just offering them a different way to think through things or approach things. My best friend is, I think, slow to recognize when she needs to make a change in her career. And I love her, but I definitely will push more on her to say, what are the things you're not getting from your current manager or from your role that you're looking for? What are the things that you wouldn't give up? And kind of just nudging them lovingly towards the decision that they should make. So I'm not hurt if people don't take my advice. I think it's more of my outside perspective that I'm hoping can help them get to where they want to go.
Why is it important for other leaders in franchising, especially women, I think, why is it important to be intentional about mentorship, personal growth, professional growth? Why is this in particular important?
So I think that this probably goes more to, and I think people are more open to it now. This goes to the whole conversation around mental health and physical well-being. And I just can remember, I was 30 when I came into franchising, how lonely it felt, that you just didn't see a lot of women on stage, or you didn't have the opportunity to connect with them a lot in person. And everything felt harder and overwhelming. So I think that is probably the most important thing, is to know that someone else has always gone through something similar to what you've gone through, or can at least offer you empathy if they haven't been through that particular situation. I know we're just off Summit, so it keeps coming up. But last week, Susan shared such a great story just about her journey, and the number of people that came up and talked about stuff that they were going through with their children really touched her. And I think that's all that she was looking for, is that those connections, like they're real. And I think that's something also too, that has been one of those benefits that's happened from COVID, in that when you travel for a work event now post COVID, the connection seems so much more genuine. There's not this like surface layer of stuff we have to talk about as far as weather or where you're from. We've kind of seen or peeked into a lot of people's lives. So the questions we're asking are because we really care about people or want to know their story. And I think it's just offered us all to really care for each other more as humans than as somebody that could either help me solve a problem or I could make money from. So it's, it's beyond that. And I think that's what's important about why we do this, is to find other people to go through this together and, make these changes together, or just offer to support to people, because somebody is always having a bad day on one of the days that you're not.
Note to self: avoid small talk with Michelle at the next franchise event.
I would love that.
I'm the same way after COVID. I feel like I don't have time for that. I want to know more about you. I want to know what you're going through. I want to, get real about things. So anyway, well, I think we could talk about this all day. We don't have all day to spend, but if there's one last kind of wrap up thought that you have about this, what would you share with us?
I would say being part of the WFC was one of the best things I've done with my career in franchising. I made the best relationships out of it. I know that everybody that applies for WFC can't get on it, but you can get involved in your WFNs. you can get involved in your FBNs or your regional IFA meetings. And I think just making those connections, walking up and saying hi can be scary, but you'll be really surprised how embracing this community is. Because again, if you're doing the right things in franchising, you have such a support system here that wants to help you be successful. So I think that's really it, is just take the time to make those personal relationships, whether it's a formal or an informal relationship, mentorship or otherwise, but reach out and be open when people reach out to you. That's what I would say.
I can't think of a better person or a better piece of advice to wrap up season 4 with, because this is our last episode of season 4. So thanks so much, Michelle. We are looking forward to an 5th anniversary season of her success coming up at the beginning of 2024. And I know that there's going to be a lot more announcements and information about that coming up. But and I know Michelle's going to be out there faithfully listening.
That's right.
So again, thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks for joining Her Success podcast by the Women's Franchise Committee.